Hey guys, so today we are answering a subscriber question, and the question in question was, Frederick, what bad habits can lead to a software developer's downfall or end of their career? So let's get into it. Well, this is a really good question. Apart from, I suppose being too handsy with coworkers, there's probably quite a few. Public indecency, things of this nature, I suppose. But if we're going to be a little bit more serious and actually try to give you some quality advice on this one, or not necessarily advice, but my experience on this, let's go with my favorite ones. So one of the first things that you may develop is that is going to cause I've seen this before, and it's really bad. Like, I think it's hilarious. Well, I'm not saying hilarious because it's sad in a way as well. Is when you have candidates who come into interviews and you can immediately hear that they have a fair bit of arrogance. Arrogance is one of the first things that you can bring to that will cause the downfall of your career. It's probably one of the main reasons why, in this I will touch on the next thing, because this is the thing that causes one of the main reasons as to why why you get to the next problem. But arrogance is for sure, like, you can call it arrogance or a lack of interest or like indifference or whatever. If you ever get to a point where you, as a software developer, where you kind of get complacent, if you will, you think that you know all this stuff and other people don't, and you're good at what you do and they're not so good. Like, it's just a matter of time before nobody wants to hire you or before you start causing problems. It's just a matter of time. And it's also just a matter of time before you get to a situation where your skills start to rot. But that's the next thing, and we're going to talk about that as well. So for me, it's the most common thing I see, which is like this arrogance problem, where you start getting higher on your own stuff, and you see people who they just don't get it. They just don't understand it. It's the same. You see the same thing in fucking sports. You see it everywhere. There's one single little person running around in a team of, like, let's call it football. You see this little football player running around, and all of a sudden he gets showered with praise and appreciation, and oh, you're so good at what you do, and all of a sudden it starts going to their heads. And they start like behaving as if they're, a gift from God or something like that. And all of a sudden they start actually decaying their career, because you see it. The dirty secret, guys, to the people out there who believe that they are something special, the 10x programmers or the self-proclaimed 10x programmers, is that it doesn't fucking matter how good you are as an individual. It doesn't matter. Unless you are just in it for yourself, it doesn't matter, because most of IT is about working in a team, just as in sports. It doesn't matter if you have a single person who is super amazing but doesn't share the ball with anybody else, or can't work with the rest of the team, because the team is needed in order to deliver the win. Like, it's the same thing in software. If you have a single person that is arrogant or somehow causes issues, it's more likely that you need to extract that person from the team, because the company will prioritize the productivity of the rest of the company over the productivity of one single individual. And that is one of the main reasons why that's a habit that you can develop. You can just sit there and become this arrogant douche that nobody wants to work with. And if you do, like, as I said, it's just a matter of time before you get fired, or that you don't get hired, because that sort of attitude, it very quickly starts shining through. There's tons of times I've sat in a meeting with, or like in an interview with a person, and I can immediately hear that, oh shit, I can't have this person in this company. We cannot get this person in, because if we do, it's very likely that at best they are going to work completely alone, but they're also going to cause a great deal of frustration with our other developers. And even if you're the best developer known to man, you will not out code 10 other developers, or 4, or 5. The quality of your code might be high, but you won't be able to produce as much as 4 or 5 people. So that's number one. And this is, as I said, it's something that leads to skill rot. In other words, you get into the habit of just knowing, you get complacent, you get into some situation, you become more of a manager, then you become a person who, like someone who writes code or anything like that. And all of a sudden your skills are irrelevant, or this is very common. It ties into the arrogance thing again. I've seen many times where like a person comes in and they speak very clearly as a manager, and after just a few minutes of conversation, you can immediately hear that this person hasn't written a single meaningful line of software in 5 years. They're just managers, but they're interviewing not for a management position. They're trying to be a programmer, and they're not, because programming knowledge and skill is something that you need to maintain. It's a maintenance type of thing. And if you get into the habit of not updating yourself, or not caring enough, or you believe somehow that you're above needing to continuously refresh your knowledge base, I'm sorry to say, it's just a matter of time again until you're not employable anymore. It may take a year, it may take 5 years, it may take 10 years, but it's just a matter of time. And yeah, those I would say are probably the two main reasons, but I will give you a third one, and this is something I've seen quite a few times as well. And that is basically to not understand your role, to have it's a habit that I've seen quite a few times, where people, they work in a certain way in a given company. It's hard, I don't know really what to call this. I don't really have a good word for it, but I've seen it many times. And it's basically if you've worked for some time, you've heard this before. Oh, at my last company we used to do this, or at my last company I used to do that. At my last company, or at this company they do that. You become this person who has a hard time accepting and acting based on your current situation. You just talk about the ideal case, or you talk about how something used to work at your last company or some other company, like some other situation. You don't seem to have the ability to understand that you're not working for company X anymore. You're working for company Y. And the way that it worked at your last company you can give that as advice, and you can encourage improvements within your current company, but becoming this sort of person who just blindly adheres to best practices, or tries to act as if your role is to direct every other person into a better way of working, or maybe even being better people, or like being this arrogant douchebag who believes that somehow just stating that, oh, this is better than that, is going to change anything. That's also going to cause you a great deal of problem, especially if you want to be a manager. I don't know how many times I've seen managers who, like, they act as if their job is just basically to tell people that this is the way you should be working, but they don't have a plan for engaging people. This is once again, like, they don't have that team spirit. They don't understand that if you're truly meant to make a change, if you truly want to see people adhere to these best practices and this experience that you bring to the table, then you need to have a proof of value. You need to have a very good strategy and be the sort of person who can convince people. You need to be a mover of people, and not understanding like your role as a senior experience, or somebody who really knows your stuff, it's going to cause a lot of problems. I mean, if you want to be a manager, and like, it doesn't matter if you work for 20 years as a software developer, it doesn't count for anything. If you want to progress your career or be effective at working as some type of senior profile, you need to be able to make people to get people to listen to you. And on the flip side of things, if you're an inexperienced programmer and you get into this habit of having the ears of some person on your company, and you start believing yourself that my role here is to tell everybody else what to do, and then you get into a new company and you start behaving like you're a manager when you're actually interviewing for a junior position. You're going to come off as this know-it-all douchebag that nobody wants to work with, and ultimately people are going to question whether or not you're actually a software developer or you're trying to be a manager. So having a very clear sense of identity, a clear sense of professional identity, and it's pretty important, because it's going to dictate how well you actually fulfill the shoes that you are supposed to fill at a given company. So what I want you to take away from this is that first and foremost, arrogance is the thing that causes the downfall of a programmer's career. If you get arrogant and you start believing somehow that your shit doesn't smell, that's a very bad thing, because trust me when I say this, you will get fired or you won't get hired. It doesn't matter if you're a genius, it doesn't matter who you are, because no sane company would hire one person that causes the loss of 3 other people. It doesn't matter how good they are. Secondly, failing to hone your skills, to get outdated, if you will, to get complacent. If nothing is like, all your market value comes from the fact that you can produce results within the relevant technologies for the companies that are out there. If you can't do that, your value completely disappears. And arrogance and somehow like having a weird picture of yourself is the thing that leads to that you stop learning, and that's something that very quickly leads to career downfall. And lastly, having a bad understanding of your role within a company is the thing that is going to kill you, because nobody cares how you did it at your last job unless it's not relevant for the situation that you are in. And acting as this person who tries to be a self-proclaimed thought leader, that's part arrogance as well. It's just going to make you seem like this sort of person who talks a lot, or knows, like, who, yeah, as I said, well, not as I said, but basically you talk more than you are able to deliver, and it's a very bad thing. If you are supposed to be a manager and and people can clearly see that you have no way of moving people, you can't actually deliver on anything, you're not going to get hired as a manager. If you're a junior who somehow got it into your head that your job is to push for change and improvements and like just get people on board with stuff, when you don't actually fulfill that requirement, you don't have the personal charisma or anything like that, that's also going to cause a lot of issues for you, and ultimately you're just going to be viewed as some type of know-it-all person that nobody wants to work with. So hopefully you take these warnings with you, because I've seen it too many times, and quite a lot of people I have met personally and friends of mine have interviewed have lost jobs because of this, even very seasoned veterans. So be careful with that stuff. Have a great day.